This is a special, I guess, bonus episode of Not Another Industry Podcast about the recent events as of this recording with Andrew Tate, Greta Thunberg, and just the pizza box allegedly giving away his location, and just disinformation, misinformation, and all that. Right now it is 2:47 a.m. on Saturday, December 31st. Central Time, and I should be asleep right now, but I'm not. But yeah, I want to do. I was debating whether to put this in the sort of Not Another Industry Podcast cinematic universe, or to be like a sort of standalone video essay thing. Excuse me. And I think I'm just gonna, I'm still gonna do a normal episode with the guest coming up on Tuesday, but I just want to put this out because this thing, I don't know, for whatever reason, it really bothered me. So I think, background, there's this person who tweeted that Romanian authorities needed proof that Andrew Tate was in the country, so they reportedly used his social media posts. His ridiculous video yesterday featured a pizza from a Romanian pizza chain, Jerry's Pizza, confirming he was in the country. And the person who tweeted that is someone named Alejandra Caraballo. Her Twitter handle is ESQUEER_. So ES queer, I guess, underscore. And she has a picture of Andrew Tate with this with a red arrow pointing to this pizza box. And I remember I was in a Discord, a crypto, or I guess an NFT Discord. I'm one of those idiots who still has some money, although not very much, in NFTs and I guess crypto. And somebody posted that tweet saying, wow. Also, just background, I guess Alejandra Caballo is, her bio says, wise Latina, and then a Puerto Rican flag. I believe that's the Puerto Rican flag. And then clinical instructor, Harvard Law, Cyber Law Clinic, gender and tech, alleged expert, Elon Musk. I guess she's quoting Elon Musk, saying that I guess Elon Musk called her an alleged expert. And her bylines had appeared in Wired, Slate, and it says, views equal to my own. But anyway, so I guess I'm in this Discord. I think this Discord when I first saw it, and someone in this Discord said, wow, LOL, and shared that tweet. And I was like, I guess just background. Everyone, online, I guess background. I am not like pro Tate, anti Tate, really. I mean, I'm obviously anti what he's been accused of. And if he did, if he is a human trafficker and all that stuff, then obviously that's very terrible. But I don't spend a lot of time thinking about Andrew Tate just in general. He's a content creator. His job is to generate outrage. People think of content creators or celebrities or politicians and stuff as trying to develop goodwill and develop cheer and develop kind of popularity, but the most kind of successful people at creating content, and even politicians, you have about maybe 40% of people who actually hate you, and then ideally you want the other 60% to love you. But theoretically, it's like you think about Donald Trump, probably 40% of the country loves him, 40% of the country absolutely hates him. And then the other 20%, it's like swing voters. Or Barack Obama, you probably say maybe like 46% of the country probably loves him, and then 39% maybe hates him, or maybe 38, whatever it is. But so when I see his hijinks, and people were like, I remember people were like, oh, Greta Thunberg is owning him because she kind of had the sassy reply, and someone on the timeline somewhere said, she's not really owning him. She's that tweet of hers that was kind of dunking on Tate, had a bunch of, millions of impressions, millions of views. And so that's he's gonna sell a bunch of alpha male podcast courses. Not podcasts, but he's gonna get a lot of views. He's gonna get a lot of video views, and he's gonna get a lot of new followers, and he's gonna be able to sell all these people his kind of alpha male courses, or whatever it is that he's selling, right? I think it's like these alpha male courses. He has a lane. That's what happens when you're a content creator. You find a lane, like Kevin Samuels, rest in peace. You find a lane, and then you kind of double and triple and quadruple down on that lane. And so anyway, this is not like from a pro or anti Tate thing. Although obviously anti human trafficking. But anyway, that he's alleged to have done. So anyway, I was in this Discord, and someone posts this thing that says, wow, LOL. And I'm like, wait, like, what's the, source? Like, there's just a picture with an arrow, right? It says Romanian authorities needed proof that Andrew Tate was in the country, so they reportedly used his social media post. His ridiculous video yesterday featured a pizza from a Romanian pizza chain. Let me slow down. Jerry's Pizza, confirming he was in the country. And so, I'm like, wait, this is just a picture. Like, there's no report. It's just a picture of like a screenshot of Andrew Tate in front of this pizza with a red arrow pointing at the pizza. Like, that's not a source. So I was like, wait, like, source. I guess if you go to the actual tweet, she does kind of follow up and say that. I guess it says the investigators. So I guess there's like some sort of Romanian newspaper that says, the investigators waited for the Tate brothers to return to Romania. Blah blah blah. They put together evidence. So it says sources close to the investigation stated for Gondol, the newspaper, that shortly after the completion of the computer exercise, the authorities waited for the right moment to catch the Tate brothers, who were always out of the country. After seeing, including on social networks, that they were together in Romania, the DIICOT, I guess that's some sort of, their fancy police, prosecutors mobilized the special troops of, whatever, and descended by force on their villa, blah, 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 but also on other addresses. Anyway, but there's nowhere in that does it, this thing that she kind of screenshotted, nowhere does it say that they used, anything but the pizza box at all. And so I remember, like, just, I was in this Discord, I was like, hey, this Discord, I was like, source. And, someone's like, the source is trust me, bro. And then, someone else is like, well, let's see. Let's go to this Discord. Anyway, so, someone's like, I'm like, source, because this doesn't make any sense, really. And, they're like, someone's like, trust me, bro. And then someone's like, they flew back. I'm like, I was like, source, I'm sure a police agency would have other ways of determining if someone's in the country, right? Like, it would presume that, you would think that a police agency would, passport entry, for example, things of that nature. So anyway, yeah, the thing just didn't make any sense, right? Like, if you just think about it for 2 seconds, right? Like, to get in and out of the country, you need a passport. And then authorities tend to know where people live in a country. But anyway, the idea of, that they needed that to confirm he's in the country just was sounding really stupid. Like, it didn't make any sense whatsoever. And so I was like, whatever. And someone was like, well, so, someone was like, they flew back from Dubai private, and, they fly private. I'm like, if you fly private, like, you still have to go through customs. like flying private isn't just some sort of cheat code to not have to do anything. So then, I think I was doing something that is probably the lowest ROI thing you could do just ever. I remember I replied to a couple of people just, on one of those, something, because then Popbase picked it up. And like these tweets, I think Popbase, some sort of pop culture Twitter thing, their tweet that says, Andrew Tate's video in response to Greta Thunberg allowed, whatever, to confirm he was in the country and arrest him, blah, 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 due to the piece of change shown in the 2-minute rant, blah, blah, blah. And, like they have, Popbase has 525,000 followers, and there's some sort of source for pop culture news and entertainment and stuff. And so that tweet has, 735,000 likes, and it's been viewed 79.3 million times, 88.1 thousand retweets, 63,000 quote tweets. So, this is like very, like, a lot of people are, so I was like, wait, like, how's everyone just, there's no source. And like, I'm not, I've worked in media, but more, creatively, like as a television writer. And then, I did take I wrote for my college newspaper for like one semester. So I do know a little bit about, for all of one semester, but so I do know a little bit about like kind of sources and fact checking and things, but like, it was just, but even like without that, it just doesn't make much sense. Like, this is not the neighborhood watch, probably. Like, and I think now I'm going to look up what this DIICOT Romania is. So it's Directorate for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorism. Yeah, so it's like, this is not the neighborhood watch that is locking up Andrew Tate, and like, this isn't kind of some crew that doesn't have, between cell phones, internet, and then just passports, you would know if someone's in a country, and you would know someone's whereabouts. So anyway, I did the dumb thing of like replying to a couple of people, like saying, hey, like this, actually, no, first what happens is that I started seeing people who I kind of believe are smart, like people who I think are smart, like a couple of people who, who I would think, okay, you're not dumb. We're kind of saying, oh, it was the pizza box, that darn, it was like Scooby-Doo. If it wasn't for that pesky pizza box, wait, like like just basic, even if you're flying private, you go through customs. Like flying private doesn't mean you could just, like there's the FAA. Well, I guess that's an American thing. Is the FAA international? I don't know. That's America. So Federal Aviation Administration. But either way, so that's a United States thing. But just in general, like you have manifests, right? Like if you're flying a plane, like other countries have their own version of the FAA. Like if flying private just meant you could bring whatever you wanted, and like to be fair, look, flying private, it is not as restrictive. It's more permissible than flying, commercial. But it's not as if you could just kind of do whatever you want. And so, I just started seeing people who I would think better of kind of buying this, right? Like, oh, like the pizza box, Greta, him, and like it was very, like, just really, like, just, like I started thinking, like, wait, am I crazy? Like, I guess it is. Maybe it is plausible. Like, is there a source? Like, is there actual, because like when you think about these things, like you want, for example, like if PNB Rock, everyone at first was like, oh, his girlfriend's posting gave away the location. Then later we found out, that the people who, the father and son duo who with the son who killed PNB Rock, one of them, I think it was one of them was already at the Broscos, right? Like one of the father son duo was already at the Roscoe's, so it wasn't like, it wasn't like. But the police, you have like a primary source, right? The police investigate. Usually, you have a police report, some sort of incident report. You have some sort of primary source. This was just a person on Twitter who posted a picture and just drew an arrow to the pizza box. So I was like, wait, like how are people like this? Doesn't like, am I crazy? I started thinking like, maybe I guess it's possible, right? Like it is possible that maybe but it's just not very. It doesn't make much sense. And so, I started doing probably the lowest ROI thing you could possibly do, which is replying to strangers online and saying, hey, this doesn't, saying, hey, like, oh, actually, yeah, I was like, hey, this doesn't, why would they, like, do you just think that Romania doesn't have, like, borders? And I think, like, to be fair, like, Romania is a real country. I think the other thing is that people are like, oh, Romania is, this porous border, and like or some people said, oh, it's part of the Schengen region. I guess there's this region, I think in the European Union where, you can kind of move freely among, Schengen. It's like this region where you can move freely across different countries, but apparently, it's a visa-free zone, but Romania is not part of it. It's an area comprising 27 countries, European countries that have abolished kind of passport and other border control of their mutual borders. But Romania is not even part of that. But I would understand if we were talking about like, because I think I was like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. But people are like, well, it's Romania and this and that. Well, first people were like, oh, well, it's flying private, But I'm like, wait, like flying private, you still have to follow the rules. You still have to declare who's on the plane and have customs and things. Visa entry and stuff, and they're like, oh well, it's this region, but but it's the Schengen region, it's free, and it's like, oh well, no, it's actually not that region. And then I think the next thing people, well, it's Romania, it's this, it's this country that's like not very on the up and up, but then it's not like it'll be one thing if Romania, and I looked it up, I think Romania is like it's not the poorest country. It's actually, I think it's like 47th in GDP or something, or like I think like 52nd in GDP per capita. I think it's like 52nd in GDP per capita, and then 47th in some other sort of economic metric. Anyway, so like it's not like I don't understand if it was if we're talking about like Iraq during the Iraq War, or like Ukraine today, or if we were talking about if we were talking about Afghanistan, like during the because then people just kind of Osama bin Laden's like slipping into Pakistan through the border and stuff, and so but Romania, like you look it up, Romania is like a legitimate country, because I think that was the next thing people said, oh, like you're just it's Romania, and then I was like kind of, and then I was like, wait, am I crazy? And then I saw like someone had posted a video, I guess Andrew Tate himself posted a video, I think 4 days prior to this whole raid, where Andrew Tate literally, like the video, it says Romania, like it's on Twitter, and the text says Romania, and then it's just a video of kind of landscape. And then I was like, yo, how could they have found? How could they have possibly known? I responded like a couple of people just sarcastically because I was just bored, saying how could they have possibly known he was in Romania, and then attaching, quoting that thing. And people were like, okay, well that that lets you he's in the country but not where. Or they were like, oh well, yeah, but that doesn't, you don't know that he took that. People could take videos and then post them later. The pizza thing was an ongoing fight with Greta, so they knew it was in that time. But people just very much wanted to believe that it was this pizza box. And eventually the New York Times and just the police, the police, the Romania DIIC, whatever that thing's called, for terrorism and organized crime, said no, it had nothing to do with a pizza box. Which I'm sure they probably they think it's ridiculous themselves that people would think that it was like. And also I think someone had responded when I was kind of saying, hey, this is really stupid. That, oh, well, the pizza, the pizza box gave them they could call the pizza company and get the address. Like, we live in a very surveilled society. I don't know. It's like people don't remember the whole Edward Snowden thing, or people don't watch. I don't know if people don't watch like true crime shows, but it's very easy to figure out where somebody is. Like, it's not, it's not difficult. You have yourself. You leave a digital footprint everywhere. Your cell phone is just a tracking device. And then your internet provider, and so even without getting into passports and stuff. And also he wasn't behaving like he was on the run. He posted a video saying Romania, 4 days prior. And anyway, and then the other thing that happens is that people are like, oh well, you're just an Andrew Tate fanboy, and it's like the idea that what would make. Like, what's more of like a Tate worship thing would be to say that it was the pizza box, right? Because then it would be like, oh, Andrew Tate is this master evader. He was evading the authorities this whole time. He just slipped up. He just made one little mistake, that pizza box. And but otherwise he had just been evading, the equivalent of the Department of Homeland Security or FBI or CIA or whatever in Romania. Like, it doesn't. It doesn't like, it doesn't make any because I think then it's like, oh well, you're just the only people who care is like you're a Tate fanboy. Who cares? He's just he's but it's like it's not really. It's just more of like the fact that people would just believe anything they read on Twitter is pretty. It's not it's not, it doesn't speak like bode well for just society, right? Like people talk all the time about misinformation and disinformation, and especially after Trump and under Trump. And I think it's one of the things where it's like people wait, like you will just believe a thing just because someone tweeted it. And now I think like nowadays, however many a day later, I see the person who tweeted it is like I think I read out her credentials. She's like testified in front of Congress about disinformation, but that just kind of shows you that whole thing is sort of a racket, right? The whole disinformation expert field. It's not really a real thing. It's like they're really more so purveyors of disinformation and misinformation and stuff. And I think I've been speaking now for like almost 20 minutes. It's like, why does this matter? Like, why does this matter so much? And it reminds me, so there was this December 2018 video from part of the interruption where Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon are talking about, I think like Steph Curry had appeared on the podcast where he was saying, hey, I'm not so sure about the moon landing. The moon landing, that's kind of fishy. And, I don't believe it. The pictures look kind of grainy, whatever. And, like, you would think that kind of stuff is kind of like, it's funny. It's like people, you don't like, who takes it that seriously, right? If you think the moon landing was a conspiracy, like, whatever, more power to you. Who are you really hurting, right? And Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser said, hey, like they thought, I think Mike Wilbon said he thinks it's, Steph was probably poking fun at, because this is around the time that Kyrie Irving was talking about how the Earth is flat, and you had people kind of, you had other people. I think he said, as far as not the Earth is flat, but as far as like not the, Kyrie Irving was talking about the Earth being flat, but then Steph was saying that moon landing might have been faked, and I think Jalen Rose and Mark Spears. Mark Spears is an NBA journalist, and Jalen Rose, obviously the basketball player and also NBA media personality. We're backing Steph, saying, hey, like, yeah, the moon landing, it is fishy. Like those, who really knows? And Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser, I was like, oh, this is like a silly thing. It's just like a silly thing. And they took it very seriously. They were like, no, this leads you down the road to denying slavery and denying the Holocaust. And I remember at the time, I'm like, I mean, especially even like watching the video. I don't know if I think I watched it around that time, but I watched it another time recently. I'm like, that's such a stretch. Like I was saying, that's such a, like, why are they taking this so seriously? And then you see it, however many years, like 4 years later, you see Kyrie Irving having his kind of whole allegations of being anti-Semitic and dealing with that whole thing. And he's a very kind of question all these, it's like it's good to question things, right? You question. I mean, that's a process of science, right? That's a process of you question things. You question Central Park 5. You question, like not like if you hadn't questioned that the Central Park 5, they might have still been in prison or something, right? And so, like obviously, like in the whole scientific method is questioning things. So not to say you don't question things, but I think that Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon were really onto something where it's like, hey, this thing that seems kind of minor, like, oh, these guys kind of saying, oh, the moon landing really happened. Once you start just not believing things because you weren't there, or like, basically you just don't want to believe them, or you weren't there. Pretty much you weren't there, right? That's as far as the moon landing. It leads the pathway to basically just denying all of history. To saying, oh, like, well, did slavery really happen? The Holocaust really happened? Blah blah blah. And so I think here is kind of the opposite, where it's like just automatically believing something because it makes a person, like the whole. I mean, it was very like. It's basically fan fiction, right? Like the reason that it was very easily believed, like, oh, the pizza box gave away, because like, oh, hey, like Greta's good, Tate is bad. We want everything to become like a Marvel movie, or not we, but people, society, Twitter, the internet wants everything to become like a Marvel movie where like the good guy brings down the bad guy, and there's a extra scene in the end credits that ties it all together. Or, I don't really watch Marvel movies, but that's kind of my impression of it, right? So that like this whole pizza box thing was kind of prepackaged to be consumed, right? That it's a very neat story. The good young girl, David beats Goliath. The good person beats the bad person. Andrew Tate is hoist by his own petard. His own. It's Scooby Doo, right? I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for the meddling pizza box. And so it's very easy. Societally, like, we want to believe good prevails over evil, and things are very neat. And I just think that stuff is like, it explains a lot, right? Like, people always talk about disinformation and misinformation on the kind of quote the right, like the political right, but people, and even the fact that this person who spread this blatant misinformation, and she's then wrote like a really long thread saying, kind of justifying it, which, I mean, the thread basically just says I made it all up, but in a very like mealy mouthed like roundabout way, just being like, oh, well, the reason I've gotten quite a bit of pushback about my pizza box tweet. I want to explain my thought process and acknowledge the fair criticism. I had no idea this would go this insanely viral. Full thread behind why I tweeted this. And she explained that, she read reporting from a Romanian news org that, authorities mobilized after seeing they saw social media posts that the brothers were together, something like that, right? They saw social media posts that the brothers were together. And so she's saying she checked his social media. She's basically saying she checked Tate's social media, his Instagram, his Twitter. She sees the video from 4 days prior where he said, he shows these in Romania, but she's like, the video doesn't show the date and time, and blah blah blah. Anyway, so she's kind of like giving this long thread, but she basically, she doesn't say anywhere in the thread that this is. She made it up. Anyway. But that she's kind of a disinformation, she's a clinical instructor at Harvard Law Cyber Law Clinic, and she has testified in front of Congress about disinformation, but she spread a bunch of disinformation. I feel like I had a point that I kind of lost there, but anyway, I think that we're just very people are very willing to just believe disinformation if it makes their enemies look bad or it makes their allies look good. Like, it's very friends and enemies thing. And then even this idea of disinformation experts, it just puts a sort of veneer of objectivity or a veneer of professionalism around what is just a racket, right? It's not like, there's this guy, Ricky Rawls, who he's like a thinker, podcaster, I don't know, on Twitter, but he said it very well, which is that, let me find it because I want to actually quote him exactly. He said the craziest thing about it turning out that the pizza box theory this person spread about Andrew Tate being made up headcanon. Okay, so wait, hold on. The craziest thing about it turning out that the pizza box theory this person spread about Andrew Tate being made up headcanon by this person is that they are a Harvard Law cyber law expert who has testified before Congress about things like disinformation. In theory, disinformation is a great field, but in practice, it's just a bunch of people trying to become DNC, so like Democrat, shills, but giving it an academic sheen. It's just a weapon of propaganda. I call what serves me disinformation while calling my own disinformation the truth. I think he meant like basically what serves the other side is disinformation, and what serves my side is the truth, even if they're both actually disinformation. And you see it with the Hunter Biden laptop thing, which whatever you think about that, the laptop was real, and people. All these people around the time before the election mobilized, like all these kind of former CIA, FBI people were saying, "Oh, this laptop is likely Russian disinformation." But a bunch of like former CIA and FBI people saying the laptop was Russian disinformation was itself disinformation. Or and I think just like anytime a very convenient thing, like anytime something comes out that makes you that like pushes all the right buttons for you, right? Like there's some people for whom like Greta Thunberg bringing down Andrew Tate is like their nirvana, right? So like just question it. It's the reason why for years and years everyone was like, oh, like Trump's about to get arrested. Trump, for 4 years, right? Every day, oh, the walls are closing in, and Mueller, and he's gonna, I mean, you could run through the list. Like every month there was a new thing back, from those years of like this is gonna be the thing that kind of takes down Trump. I remember there was a thing where it's called Turnbull, where like the military was staying in like one of Trump's properties, and like that was but then it's also turned out that like Turnberry, it also in Scotland, right? It also turned out that like the military had been staying there even under Obama, so it didn't really make a ton of sense. Because like if it was just to enrich Trump, like why would Obama want to enrich Trump? But like I think that like if like things are. When people are like, something just seems too good to be true, right? Like, oh, like Greta Thunberg is, gonna like this pizza box brought down Andrew Tate, or Trump is gonna get arrested tomorrow at noon, because of whatever the latest kind of thing that is on the news. Just like question it. I mean, and then this is like way longer than I intended to kind of talk. I can't believe it's been like 27 minutes, but. I'm going to wrap it up here now, but I just think that it is like it was frightening, or maybe not frightening, but like concerning to see how quickly people would just believe, like people who would be, you would think were seemingly kind of smart, would just believe just like a picture, like a screenshot with just an arrow. And now I kind of understand, like, okay, the person who tweeted it has a bunch of followers and she's sort of a cyber law quote unquote expert, although like again, like expertise, we've seen how many times has how many experts said that, like, what was the thing that people were really scared of with the internet, net neutrality, right? Like net neutrality was supposed to be the end of the world. Like experts will kind of say, it helps them to have whatever their thing is. People kind of freak out about it, right? If I'm a internet expert or net neutrality expert, I want everyone to think that, oh, if net neutrality goes away, then it's the end of the world, because then I get to go on TV and talk about it a bunch. So she's an expert or whatever. She had 102,000 followers. So I guess it wasn't like just a random person tweeting it. So maybe I can give people a little bit more grace, because it wasn't just like a random person tweeting it. Although again, like that tweet her initial tweet has 525,000 likes. 78.6 million views, 7.4 thousand retweets, 29.6 thousand quote tweets, and now there's that like sort of, I think, community notes thing that Twitter has, where it's like the New York Times article that says, hey, like a spokeswoman, Ramona Bola, spokeswoman for the Directorate for the Investigation of Organized Crime and Terrorism, told the New York Times that wasn't the case, right? The pizza box, but just think for 2 seconds, like that it would take a pizza box to let them know that someone was in the country who was saying that they were in the country. Whatever. I'm like I feel like I'm being crazy, and I feel like maybe it's also just super early in the morning, or it's late in the night, early in the morning. But yeah, I mean, I just think that like it was crazy to see how susceptible people are to just any sort of misinformation or just blatantly made up information, just because it makes a person they dislike look bad. Like, and also just think about how easy that would be to use against you, right? Like if everyone knew like, hey, like you hate, Obama, or you hate Trump, or you know, whatever, like you hate this person. Well, hey, you'll believe anything bad about them. Let me just feed you bad things about them, right? Like let me just feed you sort of, and I can slip other misinformation in there because you're going to believe it because it either makes a person you like look bad, or it makes the person you dislike look bad, or makes the person you like look good, or the perfect the perfect version, which is this Greta thing, Greta Andrew Tate thing, where it makes a person you dislike look bad and a person you like look good. Anyway, I'm like rambling. But yeah, I mean, I just think that like disinformation it's wild to see how like just how readily people will believe anything if it, and like look, it's not a big deal, right? At the end of the day, like Tate is arrested, and like that's what kind of really matters. But just more broadly, like we can't, like, it's gonna be hard to live in a society where like each side is so eager to seize upon anything that looks bad about the other side that they would just believe anything. So anyway, that is the end of my kind of rambling rant.